My name is Chloe, and I'm 32 years old. Family has always been everything to me, even when my art was the only thing that kept me going. The day I discovered I wasn't invited to my grandparents' 50th anniversary reunion, something broke inside me. My father just shrugged and said, "It's just a reunion," as if years of my sacrifice meant nothing. They never thought I'd stand up for myself, but that day changed everything. Before I tell you what happened, if you're watching this video right now, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe to hear more stories of family betrayal and how I finally found my voice. I grew up in a household where achievement was everything. As the middle child between my older sister Stephanie and younger brother Jason, I always felt like the odd one out. While they collected trophies and academic honors, I filled sketchbooks with drawings that my parents barely glanced at. "Art isn't a real career, Chloe," my mother would say, shaking her head at my latest painting. "Look at your sister's law school applications. That's planning for the future." My father was even more direct. "You can't eat paintbrushes, kiddo," he'd joke. But there was always an edge to his voice that made it clear he wasn't really joking. The only people who seemed to see me were my grandparents Margaret and Thomas Wilson. Grandma Margaret had been an art teacher before retiring, and she recognized something in my work that my parents couldn't or wouldn't see. "You have a gift for capturing feelings, not just images," she told me once, holding up a landscape I'd painted of their backyard. "Anyone can paint trees and sky, but you make people feel the breeze." Grandpa Thomas wasn't artistic himself, but he built me my first easel when I was 12. "Everyone needs tools for their trade," he said, running his hand over the smooth wood. "This is yours." Their small two-story house on Maple Street became my sanctuary throughout my teen years and into college. While my parents pushed me toward practical courses, my grandparents encouraged me to apply to art school. When I got accepted with a partial scholarship, they helped cover the rest without telling my parents. "It's our investment in beauty," Grandma said. I flourished at Rhode Island School of Design, developing a style that combined traditional techniques with contemporary themes. By graduation, I had a small following online and had sold a few pieces to local galleries. I moved to New York after college, sharing a cramped apartment with 3 other artists while working part-time at a gallery and creating my own pieces whenever I could steal time. Then came the call that changed everything. "Your grandfather had a fall," my mother said, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. "They're saying he shouldn't be living alone anymore." "Your grandmother can't manage on her own. What about assisted living?" I asked, already knowing the family couldn't afford it. My grandparents had been teachers who'd spent their retirement fund helping grandchildren through college, including me. "We're all going to have to pitch in," she replied. "Stephanie has her law practice, and Jason just started his residency. Your father and I both work full-time." The unspoken message was clear. I was the dispensable one whose career didn't matter. So at 29, I moved back to my hometown of Ashton, Pennsylvania. I found a tiny apartment 15 minutes from my grandparents' house and took a job teaching art at the community center. Every morning, I'd stop by their house before work to help Grandpa with his physical therapy exercises and set up Grandma's medications for the day. Every evening, I'd return to cook dinner, clean up, and often stay until they were settled in bed. My siblings visited on holidays. My parents stopped by once a week for Sunday dinner, which I cooked while they chatted with Grandma and Grandpa in the living room. When they left, I stayed behind to wash dishes and get my grandparents ready for bed. "You're an angel," Grandma would tell me, patting my hand as I helped her with her nighttime pills. "We don't deserve you," Grandpa would say as I adjusted his pillows so his back wouldn't hurt. But I never saw it as a burden. These people had supported me when no one else did. They'd believed in me when even I had doubts. How could I not be there for them when they needed me? Still, I watched my art career stagnate while my siblings' lives moved forward. Stephanie made partner at her firm. Jason completed his residency and joined a prestigious hospital. Meanwhile, I was teaching basic watercolor techniques to retirees and squeezing in my own work between caregiving duties. My parents never seemed to notice the imbalance. When I mentioned being tired after particularly difficult weeks, my mother would say, "Well, we all have our crosses to bear," as if my siblings had equally demanding responsibilities. When Grandpa needed surgery for a hip replacement, I took 2 weeks off to stay at their house full-time. Neither of my siblings visited during his recovery. "They're busy with their careers," my father explained when I pointed this out. "And what about my career?" I asked. He looked genuinely confused. "This is just temporary, Chloe. You can go back to your little art projects when things settle down." 3 years passed this way. 3 years of early mornings and late nights. 3 years of doctor appointments and medication adjustments. 3 years of putting my own dreams on hold while watching my siblings thrive. And through it all, I told myself it was worth it. These were the people who had seen me when no one else did. This was my way of saying thank you. I had no idea that in the end, they would make me invisible again. It was an ordinary Tuesday when everything changed. I was scrolling through Facebook during my lunch break at the community centre when I saw a post from my cousin Rachel. So excited for Uncle Thomas and Aunt Margaret's anniversary party. 50 years is such a milestone. The venue looks amazing. I stared at my phone confused. What anniversary party? My grandparents' 50th anniversary was coming up in a month, but no one had mentioned any celebration to me. I immediately texted Rachel, "What anniversary party?" Her response came a few minutes later. "Oh, the big reunion for Grandma and Grandpa's anniversary. Didn't your mum tell you everyone's been planning it for months? It's going to be at that beautiful banquet hall by the lake." My stomach dropped. I called Rachel directly. "Hey, Chloe," she answered cheerfully. "Rachel, what's this about an anniversary party? No one told me anything about it." "Oh." There was an awkward pause. "I thought you knew. Aunt Diana and Uncle Paul have been organising it with Stephanie and Jason. It's going to be huge, like 60 people. All the extended family is coming in from out of town." "When is it?" I asked, my voice strangely calm, despite the storm brewing inside me. 2 weeks from Saturday. They've rented out the entire lakeside venue. There's going to be a slideshow of Grandma and Grandpa's life together, a fancy dinner speeches. It's going to be really special." "That sounds wonderful," I managed to say. "I'll have to check my calendar." After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. How was it possible that a major family event had been planned, invitations sent, venue booked, and no one had thought to tell me, much less invite me? I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they assumed I already knew. Maybe my invitation got lost in the mail. Maybe they were planning to surprise me with some special role. When my afternoon classes ended, I drove straight to my parents' house. My mother answered the door, surprise evident on her face. "Chloe, we weren't expecting you." "Apparently not," I said, stepping past her into the foyer. "Is Dad home?" "He's in his study. Is everything okay?" I walked down the hallway without answering, finding my father at his desk reviewing paperwork. "Chloe," he said, glancing up, "this is unexpected." So is finding out about Grandma and Grandpa's anniversary party from Rachel's Facebook post. His expression shifted subtly, a brief flash of discomfort, before settling into careful neutrality. "Ah, that. Yes, that. The party that apparently the whole family knows about except me. The celebration for the grandparents I see every single day, whose medication I manage, whose doctors I talk to, whose house I clean. That party." My mother appeared in the doorway behind me. "Chloe, don't make this into something it's not." I turned to face her. "What exactly is it, Mum?" "It's just a reunion," she said dismissively. "Family from out of town wanted to do something special for your grandparents. And I'm not family." My father sighed heavily. "Of course you're family, but you see them all the time. This is for relatives who rarely get to visit." "So I'm not invited?" I asked directly. My parents exchanged a glance. "We thought you wouldn't want to come," my mother finally said. "You're always so busy with them anyway. We thought you might appreciate a night off." The lie was so transparent it was almost laughable. "A night off," I repeated. "From the grandparents I supposedly see too much of already. That makes perfect sense. You're making this a bigger deal than it is," my father said, his voice taking on the patronizing tone he used when he thought I was being emotional. "It's just a reunion." There it was again, just a reunion, just the celebration of my grandparents' 50 years together. Just an event important enough for distant relatives to travel across the country. Just another reminder that despite everything I'd given up, I still wasn't really part of the family. I left without another word. On the drive to my apartment, my phone buzzed with a text from Stephanie. "Mum says you're upset about the party. Don't be dramatic, Chloe. It's not about you." When I got home, I called Jason, hoping my brother might show more understanding. He answered on the 4th ring, sounding distracted. "Hey sis, can I call you back? I'm heading into a meeting. Did you know I wasn't invited to Grandma and Grandpa's anniversary party?" There was a pause. "Look, Chloe, I didn't handle the invitations. That was all Stephanie and Mum." "But you knew about it. You've been helping plan it." He sighed. "Yeah, I knew, but honestly, I thought you wouldn't want to come. You're always complaining about how tired you are from taking care of them." "When have I ever complained to you about taking care of them?" I demanded. The last time we spoke was 3 months ago on your birthday. I don't know, Chloe. Mom mentioned it, I guess. Look, I really have to go. We can talk about this later. He hung up before I could respond. I sat on my sofa staring at the wall of my apartment decorated with photos of my grandparents and my artwork. In one picture, Grandpa was smiling next to a painting I'd done of their first home together. In another, Grandma was showing me how to blend colours when I was just a child. These were the people who had seen me when my own parents couldn't, and now at the celebration of their lifetime together, I was being erased from the narrative. I picked up my phone again and called my grandmother. She answered on the second ring. Chloe, dear, is everything all right? You don't usually call at this hour. I couldn't bring myself to confront her directly. What if she knew about my exclusion and had agreed to it? That would hurt more than anything my parents or siblings could do. Everything's fine, Grandma. I just wanted to check if you need anything special from the store tomorrow. Oh, you're so thoughtful. We're fine for now, though actually there is something I wanted to ask you about. My heart raced. Was she going to mention the party? What's that, Grandma? Your mother mentioned they're planning some sort of surprise for our anniversary next month. Do you know anything about it? I hate to ruin a surprise, but I'd like to have the right outfit ready. She didn't know I wasn't invited. She assumed I was part of the planning. I think it's meant to be a complete surprise, I said carefully. But I'm sure whatever you wear will be perfect. After we hung up, I curled into a ball on my sofa and finally let the tears come. Not just for this betrayal, but for all the small dismissals over the years. All the times my sacrifices had been taken for granted. All the times I'd been made to feel that my contributions to the family didn't matter because they weren't as prestigious as my siblings. I cried until there were no tears left, and then I stared at the ceiling, feeling empty and hollow. In that moment, I realized a fundamental truth: my family had never seen me clearly, and they never would unless I made them look. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a strange sense of calm. The initial shock had given way to a deeper hurt, one that burrowed beneath the surface and settled in my bones. I went through the motions of my day, stopping by my grandparents' house as usual. Watching Grandpa Thomas struggle through his physical therapy exercises, I remembered the time I'd been in the middle of my first solo exhibition at a small New York gallery when I got the call that he'd fallen. I'd left immediately, abandoning the networking opportunity I'd worked months to secure. Art will wait, I'd told myself. Family comes first. That afternoon, I called Stephanie, directly determined to get straight answers. What do you want, Chloe? She answered, her voice clipped and professional, as if I were an annoying client rather than her sister. I want to know why I wasn't invited to Grandma and Grandpa's anniversary party. She sighed dramatically. Not this again. Look, it wasn't personal. We just thought, given your situation, you might not want to attend a formal event. My situation, what does that mean? You know, she said vaguely. Your job at the community centre, your artistic pursuits. The tickets are $400 per person to cover the venue and catering. We didn't think you could afford it. My grip tightened on the phone. So you didn't even give me the option. You just decided for me. Mum and Dad thought it would be awkward to invite you when they knew you'd have to decline. They were trying to spare your feelings. That's bullshit, Stephanie, and you know it. Believe what you want, Chloe. Not everything is a conspiracy against you. Sometimes a party is just a party. Just a party, just a reunion, just another way to remind me of my place in the family hierarchy. After hanging up, I drove to my grandparents' house for my evening visit. As I helped Grandma with dinner preparation, memories flooded back of my 30th birthday 2 years ago. I'd planned to treat myself to a weekend art retreat, the first real break I'd had since moving back to town. But Grandma had fallen the day before, and though nothing was broken, she was badly bruised and shaken. I'd cancelled my plans without hesitation and spent my birthday at her bedside reading her favourite poems aloud to distract her from the pain. Neither of my siblings had called to wish me happy birthday that year. My parents had sent a generic card that arrived 3 days late. Chloe dear, you seem distracted, Grandma said, interrupting my thoughts. Is everything all right? I forced a smile. Just tired. How are you feeling today? Better now that you're here. Oh, I wanted to tell you, Diana called about some event next month for our anniversary. Isn't that nice? After 50 years, we finally get a proper celebration. My heart constricted. Very nice, Grandma. You and Grandpa deserve it. Diana mentioned something about a tribute to family caregivers. I told her they simply must recognize all you've done for us. We wouldn't still be in our home if not for you. I nearly dropped the plate I was washing. A tribute to family caregivers. at an event where the primary caregiver wasn't even invited. "That sounds wonderful," I managed to say. Later, after my grandparents had gone to bed, I stayed behind to tidy up. As I was gathering my things to leave, I noticed a stack of papers on the side table that hadn't been there before. Curious, I flipped through them. It was a printed email from my mother with an attachment showing the design for the anniversary party invitations. My heart stopped when I saw the artwork incorporated into the design, a stylized drawing of my grandparents' house that I had created last year as a Christmas gift for them. They had used my art without asking, without crediting me, without even inviting me to the event where it would be displayed. The final straw came 2 days later when I overheard a conversation between my parents as they visited my grandparents. I had stepped outside to take a phone call from one of my community centre students and was returning through the side door when I heard my name. "Chloe's still upset about the party, Ma," my mother was saying. "She's making it all about her as usual." "What did you expect?" my father replied. "But we made the right call. You know how she gets at family gatherings, always looking so stressed and resentful. The last thing Margaret and Thomas need is her bringing down the mood with her struggling artist vibe. This is supposed to be a celebration. Stephanie said we should have just told her it was adults only, but then she'd wonder why the cousins' kids are there. The truth is, Diana, she just doesn't fit with the image of success we want to present to the extended family. Everyone else has real careers, real achievements to talk about. What's Chloe going to say when people ask what she's doing? I teach finger painting and babysit my grandparents." I stood frozen outside the door, their words cutting deeper than any knife could reach. So that was it. I was an embarrassment. A failure. Someone to hide away when company came. I quietly backed away from the door and left through the garden gate, sending a text to my grandmother that I'd had an emergency at work and would see them tomorrow. Driving home, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, but now it was hardening into something else. Something stronger. Something that wouldn't break so easily next time. When I got home, my phone rang. It was my grandmother. "Chloe, dear, I hope everything's okay at work. Before I forget, I wanted to ask a favour. For this anniversary thing next month, could you help me pick out something nice to wear? And maybe do my hair the way you did for Christmas last year. Diana says it's going to be quite formal." The irony was almost too much to bear. They hadn't invited me to the party, but they still expected me to help prepare for it. "Of course, Grandma, I heard myself say. "Anything for you." After we hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my apartment, no longer crying, no longer even angry. Instead, I felt a cold clarity washing over me. For years, I had allowed my family to determine my worth. I had accepted their judgment, that my art, my choices, my very self was somehow less valuable than my siblings. I had put my life on hold, sacrificed my career, given up my independence, all to care for grandparents who were being celebrated at an event I wasn't welcome to attend. It was time to change the narrative, not by pleading for inclusion or demanding recognition, but by creating my own celebration, my own tribute, my own truth. I picked up my phone and made a call to someone I hadn't spoken to in months. "Jackson, it's Chloe Wilson. Remember that offer you made about featuring my work at your gallery? Is it still open?" The next morning, I woke with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. The gallery owner, Jackson Porter, had been enthusiastic about my call. He'd been trying to get me to show my work at his downtown gallery since I moved back to Ashton, but I'd always declined, citing lack of new material and time constraints. "I want to do a series, I told him. "Something personal, something about family bonds and caregiving." "That sounds powerful," he'd said. "When can you have it ready?" 3 weeks from now," I replied without hesitation. "The last Saturday of the month. The same day as my grandparents' anniversary party." "That's ambitious," he cautioned. "Are you sure you can pull it together that quickly?" I've never been more sure of anything. Now sitting at my small kitchen table with a cup of coffee, I began to sketch out my plan. I would create a series of paintings depicting my relationship with my grandparents over the past 3 years. Not romanticized or sanitized, but raw and real. The exhaustion and the joy. The frustration and the tenderness. The invisible labor that had gone unacknowledged by my family. I called in sick to the community centre, something I rarely did, and spent the day outlining my project. I would need to work every spare minute to complete it in time, but the urgency fueled me rather than intimidated me. That evening, when I visited my grandparents, I brought my camera. "I want to document some of our everyday moments," I told them, "for an art project." "How lovely," Grandma said, patting my hand. "Will you show it at that nice gallery downtown?" "That's the plan," I said, snapping a photo of her hands as she sorted her medications. Over the next few days, I established a new routine. I'd visit my grandparents as usual, helping with their needs, while also capturing images, Grandpa doing his exercises, Grandma reading in her favourite chair, the two of them playing cards at the kitchen table. I recorded snippets of our conversations and made notes about significant moments in their care. At night, I painted with a fervour I hadn't felt since art school. The first piece in the series depicted the night I'd spent in the hospital when Grandpa had pneumonia last winter, working on a small sketch by the light of the emergency room while he slept fitfully in the bed beside me. Another showed the bathroom in their house, modified with grab bars and shower seats, that I'd researched and helped install. A week into my project, I reached out to an old friend from art school who now worked as a social media consultant. "Layla, I need your help with something." I explained my situation and my plan. She listened without interruption, then said, "I'm in. Let's make this the most talked about gallery opening Ashton has ever seen." Together, sir, we crafted a strategic social media campaign. I started sharing cryptic previews of my work online, just enough to intrigue without revealing the full concept. Layla helped me reconnect with art world contacts I'd neglected over the years of caregiving personally, inviting critics and influencers to the opening. Jackson, seeing my commitment, decided to make my show the centerpiece of his gallery's seasonal program, allocating his marketing budget to promote it across local media. The event was billed as Bonds in Exploration of Family Care by Chloe Wilson. When a local arts reporter reached out for a preview interview, I carefully framed the exhibition as a celebration of my grandparents' influence on my life. Time to honor their 50 years of marriage without mentioning the competing family event. This is my gift to them, I said, a recognition of everything they've taught me about dedication and love. The article ran in the town paper and was picked up by several regional arts publications. The headline read, "Local Artist Honors Grandparents' Golden Anniversary with Intimate Exhibition." My family surprisingly didn't seem to notice the building momentum around my show. They were too busy with their own preparations and perhaps too accustomed to dismissing my artistic endeavours as insignificant. 2 days before both events, I met with my therapist, Dr. Reeves, whom I'd been seeing sporadically since moving back to town. "Are you sure about this, Chloe?" she asked after I explained my plan. "It sounds potentially confrontational." "I'm not doing this to confront them," I said, though even I wasn't entirely convinced. "I'm doing this to reclaim my narrative, to make visible what they've chosen not to see. And if they see it as an attack, I considered this. Then they're missing the point. This isn't about them, not really. It's about me finally taking up space in my own life." The night before the opening, I made my usual visit to my grandparents. The house was filled with flower arrangements that had been delivered throughout the day, early anniversary gifts from relatives who would be attending the party the next evening. As I helped Grandma into bed, she held onto my hand a moment longer than usual. "Chloe," she said softly, "I don't know what we would have done without you these past few years. I hope you know how much we appreciate everything." My throat tightened. "I know, Grandma. Your grandfather and I were talking earlier. After tomorrow's party thing, we'd like to show our appreciation properly. Maybe we could come see that art show of yours we've been hearing about." So they had heard about my exhibition, but they still assumed it was secondary to their party, something to be fitted in afterward. "That would be wonderful," I said, kissing her forehead. "Get some rest now. Tomorrow's a big day." As I drove home for the last night before everything would change, I felt a strange mix of emotions, determination, anxiety, sadness, and underneath it all, a quiet certainty that I was finally doing the right thing for myself. The morning of both events dawned bright and clear, as if the universe itself approved of what was to come. I rose early, feeling strangely calm, despite the magnitude of what I was about to do. I visited my grandparents briefly in the morning, helping them with their usual routine, but not mentioning either event directly. I'd already arranged for a neighbour to check in on them later and help Grandma start getting ready for what she still believed was a surprise party. "I'll see you later," I said as I left, the words carrying more weight than they knew. At the gallery, Jackson and his staff were putting the finishing touches on the installation. 27 pieces arranged chronologically, telling the story of my 3 years as a caregiver. The earliest works showed my initial optimism, the middle pieces depicted the growing strain and isolation, and the final works represented my awakening to the imbalance in my family relationships. The centerpiece was a large canvas titled Invisible, showing me sitting beside my sleeping grandparents in their living room, my figure rendered in transparent layers that made me appear to be fading into the background while still holding their hands. It was the most technically complex piece I'd ever created and the most emotionally honest. "This is remarkable work, Chloe," Jackson said, standing beside me. "Regardless of what happens with your family tonight, you should be proud of what you've created here." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen through my art. Whether my family attended or not, I had reclaimed my voice. As the afternoon progressed, I grew increasingly nervous. The gallery opening was scheduled for 6 o'clock, while the family reunion was set to begin at 5. My grandparents would be arriving at their party soon, discovering the elaborate celebration that had been planned without my involvement. At 5:30, my phone rang. It was my grandmother. "Chloe, dear, where are you?" Her voice sounded confused and a little upset. "Everyone's here at this beautiful venue by the lake. Your mother says it's a surprise anniversary party for us." My heart raced. This wasn't how I'd expected things to unfold. "I'm at the gallery, Grandma. I have my art show tonight, remember? But aren't you coming to our party? All the family is here. Even your cousin Alice came from Seattle with her children." I took a deep breath. "I wasn't invited, Grandma." There was a long silence. Then, "What do you mean you weren't invited? That can't be right." "It's true. Mum and Dad decided not to include me. They said it was just for family who don't get to see you often." Another silence, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, taking on a hard edge I rarely heard. "Thomas." She called away from the phone, presumably to my grandfather. "Chloe says she wasn't invited to our party." I could hear muffled conversation in the background. Then my grandfather's voice came on the line. "Chloe, is this true? You weren't invited to our anniversary celebration." "Yes, Grandpa. I found out by accident a few weeks ago." "But that's unthinkable." His voice shook with emotion. "You of all people, after everything you've done for us." "It's okay, Grandpa. I'm having my gallery opening tonight instead. It's a series about our time together these past few years." "Where?" he demanded. "Where is this gallery?" I gave him the address, not sure what he intended. "We'll be there," he said firmly. "This party can go on without us." "Grandpa, no," I protested. "They've gone to a lot of trouble. All those relatives came so far. They should have thought of that before excluding our most important grandchild," he said, his voice brooking no argument. "We'll see you soon, Chloe." The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at my phone in disbelief, my carefully constructed plan suddenly spinning out of control. 20 minutes later, as the first guests began arriving at the gallery, Jackson approached me with an odd expression. "Chloe, there's an elderly couple at the door asking for you. They say they're your grandparents." I rushed to the entrance to find Grandma and Grandpa standing there, still dressed in their everyday clothes rather than the formal attire that had been planned for their party. "What are you doing here?" I asked, embracing them both. "The party can proceed without us," Grandma said firmly. "We've told Diana and Paul that we had a more important engagement with our granddaughter, who apparently wasn't considered important enough to invite." "You didn't have to do that," I said, feeling a complex mix of vindication and guilt. "Yes, we did," Grandpa replied. "Now show us this art of yours." I led them through the gallery, explaining each piece, watching their expressions shift from curiosity to understanding to deep emotion. When we reached Invisible, Grandma began to cry. "I had no idea," she whispered. "No idea how much you've given up for us." "It was my choice," I assured her. "You supported me when no one else did. This was my way of saying thank you." As we stood there, the gallery continued to fill with people. Art enthusiasts, local community members, and several critics who had made the trip from Philadelphia and New York, drawn by the buzz Layla had helped generate online. An hour into the opening, there was a commotion at the door. I looked up to see several of my extended family members entering, looking around with curious expressions. My cousin Rachel spotted me and hurried over. "Chloe? This is amazing," she exclaimed, gesturing around at the artwork. When Grandma and Grandpa left the party and explained why, a bunch of us decided to come support you instead. More relatives trickled in over the next half hour, many expressing shock when they realized I hadn't been invited to the anniversary celebration. The story spread quickly through the gallery, adding an unexpected layer of drama to the evening that had the art critics taking furious notes. Then came the moment I'd been both dreading and anticipating. My parents and siblings arrived together, looking uncomfortable and out of place among the art crowd. My mother approached first. "Chloe, what is the meaning of this? Your grandparents left their own anniversary party to come here." Before I could answer, Grandma stepped between us. "Diana, we left because we discovered you excluded the one person who has truly been there for us these past 3 years. How could you do that?" My father tried to intervene. "Mom, it wasn't like that. We just thought—" "You thought what?" Grandpa demanded. "That the person who drives us to every doctor's appointment, who manages our medications, who cooks our meals and keeps our house running, who put her life on hold for us, wasn't worthy of celebrating with us. Look around you, Paul. Look at what your daughter has created here, while you were busy dismissing her." My brother Jason stood slightly behind my parents, his expression stricken as he took in the artwork depicting my daily reality caring for our grandparents. My sister Stephanie remained by the door, arms crossed defensively. The gallery had gone quiet, the other guests pretending not to listen while clearly absorbing every word. "You've embarrassed us in front of the entire family," my mother hissed, keeping her voice low but intense. "Made us look like monsters." "I didn't do that," I replied calmly. "I simply told the truth through my art. You're the ones who decided I wasn't family enough to celebrate with you." "This isn't just about the party, is it?" My father asked, his voice softer now, realization finally dawning. "This is about everything." "Yes," I said simply. "This is about everything." Jason stepped forward suddenly, his eyes red-rimmed. "I'm sorry, Chloe. I didn't understand. I didn't see what you were doing every day. These paintings." He gestured to a piece showing me helping Grandpa with his shower, my face etched with determination despite obvious exhaustion. "I should have helped more. I should have seen you." My mother started to say something else but stopped when she noticed several people openly watching our confrontation, now including a woman she recognized as the arts reporter from the local paper. "We should discuss this in private," she said stiffly. "There's nothing to discuss," I replied. "This is my truth expressed through my art. You're welcome to stay and experience it, or you can leave. The choice is yours." As they hesitated, Jackson approached with a broad smile, deliberately ignoring the tension. "Chloe, the response has been incredible. We've already sold 8 pieces, including Invisible, to the Philadelphia Contemporary Museum's permanent collection. They're calling your work a powerful commentary on the invisible labor of caregiving." My parents' expressions shifted from anger to surprise. Even Stephanie looked impressed despite herself. "A museum bought your work?" my father asked, as if he couldn't quite believe it. "Yes," Jackson confirmed. "And we've had inquiries from 2 galleries in New York about hosting this exhibition after it concludes here. It seems your daughter is becoming quite the notable artist." As the evening continued, more guests arrived at the gallery, while word spread that my grandparents had left their own anniversary party. The family reunion began to empty out, as relatives curious about the drama made their way to my exhibition instead. By 9 o'clock, the gallery was packed, the energy electric. Several local news outlets had sent reporters drawn by the unexpected human interest story of grandparents abandoning their golden anniversary celebration to support their artist granddaughter who had been excluded. Through it all, my grandparents stayed by my side, proudly introducing me to everyone as our granddaughter, the artist who captured our journey together. It wasn't the evening I had planned. It was better, because for the first time, I wasn't invisible anymore. In the days that followed my exhibition opening, I experienced a strange new reality. My phone, usually quiet except for calls from my grandparents or the community centre, buzzed constantly with messages from art world contacts, reporters seeking interviews, and family members I hadn't heard from in years. The local paper ran a front-page article about the exhibition featuring a photo of my grandparents standing proudly beside Invisible. The headline read, "Artist Tribute to Caregiving Becomes Unexpected Family Reunion." What the article didn't capture were the private conversations that began reshaping my family dynamics. The morning after the opening, I visited my grandparents as usual, unsure what to expect. I found them sitting at their kitchen table, looking thoughtful but not regretful. "We've been talking all night," Grandma said when I arrived, "about everything we didn't see. You don't need to apologize," I told them, setting up Grandpa's morning medications. "None of this was your fault. We should have noticed the imbalance," Grandpa insisted. "Should have asked why your siblings never helped, why your parents let you carry the burden alone. It was my choice to be here for you," I reminded them. "Yes, but we should have made sure it wasn't at such a cost to yourself," Grandma said, reaching for my hand. Your exhibition made us see that more clearly. Later that day, my brother Jason called and asked if he could stop by my apartment. When he arrived, he looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot in my small living room. I don't know where to start, he said finally. You don't have to say anything, I told him. Yes, I do. He sat on the edge of my sofa. I've been thinking about what you said about how I haven't spoken to you in months, about how I never called on your birthday, about how I've never once offered to take Grandma to her doctor appointments or stay with Grandpa when he was recovering from surgery. I nodded but said nothing. The thing is, Chloe, I convinced myself you were okay with it, that you wanted to do it, that your art career wasn't as important as my medical career. I let Mum and Dad's dismissal of your work become my own perspective. It hurt, I admitted, watching you all move forward while I stood still. You weren't standing still, he said earnestly. That exhibition proved it. You were creating something powerful from your experience. I just didn't see it because I wasn't looking. He pulled out his phone and showed me his calendar app. I've blocked out every Thursday evening and every other Sunday to help with Grandma and Grandpa. It's not nearly enough to make up for 3 years of absence, but it's a start. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you, Jason. I also called the hospital's art therapy program. They're looking for someone to lead workshops for patients in long-term care. I mentioned your name. They'd like you to interview next week. For the first time in years, I felt a genuine connection with my brother, a glimpse of the relationship we might have had if competition and parental favoritism hadn't driven us apart. My sister proved less receptive to change. When I ran into her at the grocery store 3 days after the exhibition, her greeting was cool. Well, you certainly made a statement, she said, examining an apple with unnecessary focus. Mom's barely speaking to anyone. That wasn't my intention, I replied honestly. She raised an eyebrow. Wasn't it? You turned a private family matter into a public spectacle. No, Stephanie. I created art about my experience. The spectacle happened because you all excluded me from a family celebration after I spent 3 years caring for Grandma and Grandpa. We did what we thought was best, she insisted, but I could see uncertainty in her eyes. For whom, for them, for me, or for your image of a perfect family that doesn't include a struggling artist's sister? She had no answer for that. We parted without resolution, the distance between us, perhaps even greater than before. But at least now it was an honest distance, not one disguised by polite family fictions. My parents proved the most complex case. For a week after the exhibition, they avoided me entirely. Then my father appeared at my door one evening, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Your mother wouldn't come, he said without preamble. She's still processing. I invited him in, offered him tea, which he declined. I saw your exhibition properly yesterday, he said, surprising me. Went back alone to really look at the work without all the drama. I waited, not sure where this was heading. It was uncomfortable to see, he admitted. To be confronted with evidence of how much we failed you. Dad, he held up a hand. Please let me finish. I've spent my life measuring success in very specific ways. Titles, income, recognition. I pushed all you kids toward paths I understood, paths I respected. When you chose art, I saw it as a rejection of my values. So I rejected your choice in return. He looked down at his hands. What I never considered was that success might look different for different people. That your dedication to Grandma and Grandpa, your willingness to put their needs first, your ability to create beauty from that experience, that might actually be the greatest success of all. I didn't know what to say. This was more self-awareness than my father had ever shown before. I can't promise your mother will come around quickly, he continued. She feels judged exposed. But I want you to know that I see you now, Chloe. I see what you've accomplished both as a granddaughter and as an artist. And I'm sorry it took a public reckoning to make me look. 2 weeks after the exhibition opening, something unexpected happened. My grandparents asked if they could move in with me. We've been talking about it, Grandma explained. With your father and Stephanie, we were supposed to start rotating living with different family members after the anniversary. We'd rather be with you, Grandpa said simply, if you'll have us. My apartment is tiny, I protested. There's barely room for me. We've thought of that too, Grandma said with a smile. We want to sell our house and buy something that would work for all of us, somewhere with a studio space for you. The idea was both terrifying and appealing. Are you sure? What about Mom and Dad? They'll adjust, Grandpa said firmly. This is our choice to make. 3 months later, we moved into a small ranch house with a converted garage that became my studio. The proceeds from my exhibition sales, which had been more substantial than I ever expected, combined with what remained of my grandparents' savings after selling their home, made it possible. My art career flourished following the exhibition. Jackson arranged for the show to travel to galleries in Philadelphia and New York, expanding my professional network beyond anything I could have imagined. The art therapy position Jason had mentioned turned into a part-time role that allowed me to share my passion with patients while still having time for my own work. My relationship with my family continued to evolve in fits and starts. Jason became a regular presence in our new home, bringing dinner every Thursday and often staying to play cards with our grandparents. My father visited weekly, initially awkward, but gradually finding a new way to relate to me as an adult with her own valid path. My mother remained distant at first, but slowly began to thaw as she saw that I wasn't interested in holding a grudge. Stephanie stayed on the periphery, our interactions cordial, but never close. 6 months after the exhibition, we held a small gathering at our new home. Not a formal celebration, just dinner with the family members who had earned back their place in my life through genuine effort and change. As we sat in the backyard watching the sunset, my grandmother raised her glass in a toast. To new beginnings, so she said, and to finally seeing each other clearly. Later that evening, as I helped clean up while my grandparents rested in the living room, Jason paused beside me at the sink. "You know what amazes me most about all this," he said, drying a plate slowly. "It's not that you stood up to the family or that your art career took off. It's that after everything, you still found a way to forgive us." I considered this as I handed him another dish. I realized something through all of this. Holding on to anger would have kept me just as trapped as accepting their dismissal of me. True freedom came from setting boundaries while still leaving room for people to change. Not everyone did, he noted, glancing toward the driveway where Stephanie had departed early, making excuses about work the next day. "That's their choice," I said. "I can only be responsible for my own actions, my own growth. The family I choose to create around me now is one where everyone feels seen and valued. Some people from our old family dynamic fit into that vision. Some don't yet. Maybe someday they will." What I didn't say, what I had come to understand through this entire journey, was that sometimes the family you create through intention and mutual respect is more valuable than the one you're born into. That blood ties are just the beginning of the story, not the whole narrative. As I went to bed that night in my room across the hall from my grandparents, I felt a sense of peace that had been missing for years. Not because everything was perfect or because every relationship had been healed, but because I had finally learnt to value myself first, to create boundaries that protected my well-being, to recognize my own worth even when others couldn't see it. The invisible had become visible, not just in my art but in my life, and that visibility had set me free. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself with family even when it felt impossibly hard? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more about my journey of finding my voice and setting boundaries. Share this with someone who might need to be reminded that their worth isn't determined by family validation. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is make yourself visible when others are determined not to see you.